there, ref. That she got the ball. Yes, good afternoon, Tottenham fans, and welcome back to the channel with your boys Dave and Jack. And this evening we have Martin back with us, and also Jose making a long way to the return as well with us here tonight as we build up to the big game in the Champions League against Slavia Praha. A win tonight would really do our hopes of getting out of the top 8 with 2 games to go a massive favour. Now, I'm in the midst of a storm, so hopefully the electricity and all that good stuff holds out. If not, we'll find a way back in. Don't worry about it. But look, you know, we'll welcome a couple of people in with us, and then we'll crack straight into business. We've got Sugar Ray has become a new YouTube member. Big up, Sugar Ray. Really appreciate the support, my man. Fair play to you. And make sure you do check out. We'll get back to doing our, the members preview and that we usually do. Just haven't had time between the close proximity games this week, but we'll get back to it for the weekend. And welcome to the Harris Army and the Jack Army, my man. Big yourself up. Terry Bits is in the house. Have a good night, everyone. Big up, Terry. Hopefully you have a great night. You're not watching tonight, Terry. Good to see you, my man. Hopefully you're keeping well. We also got Wembley 1 in the house. Big up, Wembley. Good to see you. He says, afternoon, guys, and all in the chat. After a total shit day at work, I need the tonic of your iconic pre-game pump-up more than usual. Well, look, really appreciate that. I'm not sure it's probably going to be the right tonic when we're talking about Tottenham Hotspur. It's probably only going to get you maybe more irate or stuff, but I do have the perfect tonic to maybe ease into it. We will talk about Sonny making his return to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium tonight to bid his farewell. And, of course, the big graphic on the side of the wall, the one that they've done for Ledley King and Harry Kane, they've done one of Son. It's been unveiled today, and he's gone and signed it as well. And it looks actually brilliant, actually, to be fair. I was only joking with the boys. Whoever lives in that house right on the corner, going to walk out every day like they're, going to court or something like that, because there's just going to be cameras outside their house all the time. But I would suggest maybe throwing a couple of Christmas songs as well. At the end of the day, it's only that bit of stress before the holidays come around, my man. You're only a couple of weeks away. So big up Wembley 1. Good to see you in the building. Tyler's in with us. Says, come on, you Spurs. My prediction is a 3-0 win. We saw the quality difference with the UEFA Youth League beating them 9-1. There's zero excuses to struggle against this team. Absolutely spot on. Look, I think hopefully we can get another performance like we've seen against Brentford midweek, Tyler. Shem Town says, hey, Jack and Dave Martin and Mr. Bossman Jose. Hope all are well today. Good to see you in the building. Jose's grabbing himself a membership. Fair play, Jose. Really appreciate that, my man. Welcome back to the army. We've also got Wayne Bonner. Good afternoon, folks. Hope you're all well and pumped up for our 3-0 win tonight. Hopefully, Shavi starts again. Come on, you Spurs. It would be nice to see him start again. By the way, just while we're talking on playmakers, actually, credit where credit's due. How brilliant was Maddison last night on Monday Night Football? I thought he was absolutely... I thought he came across really, really well, actually. And, you know, part of me at the start was a bit worried the way they're reflecting on his career. It's like, oh, is this guy done? And then, you know, he sort of ended it by saying he's hungrier than ever, you know, to get back and stuff, which I absolutely really love. Big up there, Leighton Evelyn. Good to see you, the resident Happy Clappers in the house. Hopefully you're keeping well. Oh, Martin's glitching out there. I'm not sure what's going on there. I think the aliens are invading. He's back again. He's gone again. We've got No Badoc says, slot through Salah under the bus. Luckily, Isaac was driving and he missed. We've also got Patrick Thomas in the house. Just want to see another great performance. Come on, you Spurs. We are Spurs TV. I hope Telenudebar contracts get written up during a live press conference. What did Telenudebar do, my man? Let me know. Maybe Bassumas, yeah, but not sure about them too. Derek Hutchins says, big up, Dave, Jack, and panel. Come on, you Spurs. Good to see you in the building. And Destiny says, big up, lads. Hope you're all well. We're good. Hopefully you're keeping well, sir. But look, let's crack straight into it. I mean, we'll start with Sonny. He does make his return to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium tonight for the first time since leaving the club to say a personal farewell to the fans before a big Champions League match tonight. He is a club legend, a former captain, a Europa League winning leader, and one of the most loved players ever to wear the shirt. Jack, how emotional do you think this moment will be for Spurs fans? And what does Son's return mean for the fan base, given everything he's achieved here?
I think it should be emotional really for him because he didn't really get the farewell that he deserved, right? He was contractually obliged to do this preseason tour. I wonder how long ago that was probably set in advance, you know, because we just found out about the Australia preseason tour. So it could have been the case that maybe he even already was having question marks around that time about whether he would be sort of hanging up the boots with Spurs. But then they were going to probably say to him, listen, you know, we kind of need you to go on this, you know, Asian tour one last time, really. So I think the guy just didn't really get maybe what he deserved. It would have been kind of nice to sort of have him be sent off after the Europa League final with the proper sort of goodbye, maybe during the parade celebration that you were at, Dave. That might have been the best way to go about it. So I think hopefully this is going to be built up and displayed in the way that really, I think, honors him. So I think we've, had to. It'll be a while till we move on. I mean, we still talk about the loss of Harry Kane. Are going to probably still talk about the loss of Sonny for a long, long time for many seasons. It's just how it is when you lose great legends. But I kind of more for him than even for the fans. I actually really hope he gets the proper send off he deserves, because he's probably one of the real examples of loyalty amongst world class players that maybe you just don't see as often anymore, and for plenty of reasons. But the guy truly loved this club, and he truly loved being here, and he stuck through us through many a dark times, through thick and thin, and is easily in my top 3 players of all time, really, of what I've been able to witness at the club. So I hope he gets the proper send off, really, that he deserves, because I kind of wish it went down a little bit better, to be honest.
I agree with you, actually, Jack. I think now that you mentioned it, I think it is a shame the way it sort of happened. The fact that look, he might love it. The fact that, his last game for Tottenham ended out in Korea on the
Right.
preseason tour in front of his home country, his own
That's
fans,
true.
and that, it's not the worst way to go out, I suppose. But I think you're right. I think it's a shame that we're doing it tonight ahead of a Champions League game rather than actually at the parade, because there was over 200,000 people at that parade. Imagine that as a send off to the guy. Everyone's singing his name and stuff like that, and it would have been a much better moment for fan and player, in my opinion. But I mean, look, Martin, how are you feeling about his Sonny's return tonight? Do you think he'll actually boost the atmosphere, to a certain degree ahead of tonight's game as well with his return? What is
Yeah,
Son's legacy at Tottenham as well,
I
Martin?
think he's definitely going to, like, due the crowd up. It's going to be, put some sort of excitement in it for him. But personally, for him, he deserves a send off. I know the parade and that was a good thing, but that was a team collective. So I think give him in his, 5 minutes or whatever it's going to be, just for everyone, just to appreciate him. I'm no doubt he's going to cry on a pitch because he's an emotional soul, isn't he? And he did love the club. He give his all for the club. No one could knock him. Come the later years, he was slowing down a bit, but it happens to everyone. And when you've got images of what he'd done for so many years, running down, taking people on, striking, doing this, it happens to everyone. And I think it was hard for him to feel that way after he'd been on such a high for so long. And the pairing with him and Harry was just, phenomenal. It goes down in history, doesn't it? So I'm glad for him. He's got his mural, whatever the word is, and he gets to come out on the pitch. I say, you say like before a Champions League game, when is a good time? I'd say the good time was the parade, but would that have put a dampener on things? Everyone that realising he's going in. So yeah, I think tonight is a good night for him. It's all about him, and then hopefully that picks the crowd up, gets everyone buzzing, and the team go for it straight from the off. So I can only see pluses for me.
And Tyler also adds in here as well. Sonny is number one, never gave up on us when every other great player did, and delivered that trophy. And that he'll forever go down as a Spurs legend for that. People still talk about Graham Roberts, and stuff like that, club captain lifting trophies, and Son's now one of them at the end of the day. I would still argue.
He did, Dave, didn't he? It's like whenever there was speculation before, he come out and went straight away. First instant, no, you can't knock him for that. He loved us, and all he wanted to do was win that trophy, and he done it. So no one can have a bad word to say about him in my eyes. You just can't. He is up there with the greats.
And I think that's one of the, for a player to leave a club and not one person in the media, one person in around the club, not one fan, to have anything bad to say about a guy is very, very rare. And I mean extremely rare at this level of sport. So fair play to the guy. So I think it shows everything about the guy. And to your point, he could have walked away from Tottenham countless of times. He didn't. And he always came out there and sort of pushed it away rather than let the media sort of feed on it and stuff like that instantly, put it to bed. So, and that buys the love, that buys the affection. And, it was nice to see him sort of move on after delivering that trophy. He's 33, was slowing down, and stuff like that. So it was nice to sort of see it come to an end in the way it did, because I think if you tried to push an extra year out of it and go again, I just think maybe some of the love, because you could see it, maybe people maybe wanting the Son still be that player, that explosive player that he was in years gone by at this level, and was frustrating them. And I was starting to get a bit you know, concerned about the narrative coming around Sonny and stuff like that. So I think it sort of, you know, ended at the right time for Sonny, but he'll always go down as a Spurs legend for sure. I mean, Jose, what is Son's legacy at Tottenham? Is he the greatest modern day Spurs player? Or, you know, I would say after Kane, but I'm sure many people would disagree.
Modern day is a wide gambit. What is modern day? Is modern day the last 5 years, the last 10, the last 15, the last 20? You know, is it this century, i.e. after the 2000s? I mean,
last 20.
Yeah, go 21st century, since 2000.
Yeah, if you go from since 2000, then yeah, he's up there, isn't he? I mean, no doubt Kane's goal scoring. If you look at Kane's goal scoring, then people are going to turn around and say that Kane was the bigger legend because of his goal scoring. But then when you break it down and you actually look at the amount of times that his head could have been turned, Kane's head could have been turned as well. I mean, we had the oddity of Kane and his brother, who was his agent or whatever, and the debacle that we had with the shenanigans that went on back then, and then he signed a 6-year contract, and you know, although Kane didn't really kick up a fuss, but neither did Sonny. The difference between Sonny and Kane for me was that when the rumours started flying, you know, that people are in for your player, Kane kept quiet, didn't say nothing at all. Sonny came out straight away, said, "No, I'm staying here. No, I'm staying here." And I think that was the difference between both them players. The interesting thing for me with Sonny is that this is my belief. My belief is that the deal to sign for LA was agreed months and months in advance. This wasn't a thing that was agreed at the end of the season and then we go sign on the dotted line, done. I think that was in the process, and the sign, the reading was on the wall leading up to this summer that Sonny, this would be his last season. But for Sonny to set that aside himself and concentrate on delivering a trophy speaks volumes for the chap. And once the trophy was delivered at the parade, Sonny's tongue, he let it go, didn't he? Sonny became a normal human being. He became Tottenham, a normal Tottenham supporter like the rest of us. He didn't mind his P's and Q's. He let all his emotion go out, and he acted the way that someone who supports the club does. And he did that on the day. And for that, I'll always remember Sonny on the day of the parade, and you know the way that he acted, and you know he was having a beer with everyone and having a drink, and you know he was swearing. He was doing things that were un-Sonny like, and he you know, Sonny became one of us, so to speak. And for that, I'll always remember him. And Sonny was, yeah, in modern times, the only reason, as I said, that people will speak about Kane more than they speak about Sonny is because of his goal scoring record. But as I said, when it came to the links and people courting Sonny and courting Kane, out of the two of them, Sonny was the one that would come out directly and say, "No, I'm staying here, not interested," blah. And he would quash them rumours straight away. Where Kane didn't inflame the rumours, but neither did he quash them either. Two great players, mind you, so Sonny and Kane, both great players, both deserving of send-offs, in my opinion, for what they gave to Tottenham. Both deserving of their murals, if that's what they're going to put up, is murals. You could easily turn around and say they could both have statues, really, couldn't you? They're not. It's a different era. But they're both equally deserving of statues.
It'd have to be a pair, wouldn't it? It'd have to be a pair.
Yeah, I agree. I think it should be kind of the pair of them together. I think they're both. I think they both go down as just absolute legends of the football club, no matter what. But I think they are, with Bale, for me, I think they're the top three in terms of the 21st century for me as a Spurs fan, to be honest. I mean, you could definitely make a case for Robbie Keane. You can make a case for Defoe as well, and plenty of others. You know, Van der Vaart is a good one. But for me, I think just maybe the longevity and probably just the fact that he was world class for definitely more than a few years, just like Harry Kane. And I think even when Dave and I looked at the stats a while ago in terms of top 10 goal scorers, I think like in the top 5 or 6, I think he's the only non-British player as well that's in the all-time goal scorers list for Spurs. So I think he makes probably most people's all-time 11 too. So I mean, we're just undoubtable legend, really.
Well, I think
at the end of the day.
And I think where he probably endears himself into the Spurs fans' hearts more than maybe Kane and Bale is the fact that he became world class at the club and never left. You know, other players have become world class at the club and left at the first sign. You know, Sonny didn't, and I think that's where he endears himself more.
Well said.
Than maybe a Bale or a Bale or a Kane. I was going to say a different word there, but guys, I mean,
sorry. What he also did though is that he came over, and from coming over, more than most at any clubs, he embroiled himself and he became Tottenham within the club himself. You know, he looked for what Tottenham was about and everything. Whilst he played for us for them 10 seasons that he was with us, he absolutely understood what it's all about to be Tottenham, and he was Tottenham. He supported the club. You know, he became a fan as well as a player. He knew what it was all about, and he knew how to connect with all the fans and that. And everybody will look up to Sonny. Everybody. And like you said earlier, Dave, there's not many players that leave clubs whereby both your own fan base and your opposing fans have not got one negative comment to make about the player at all.
Yeah, it speaks everything about him. But look, guys, we'll end off on the Sonny segment. We'll go around the panel individually, and you guys at home as well. I mean, what individual moment or memory of Son stands out the most to you in terms of his whole Tottenham career? We'll start with you on this one, Jacko.
I mean, there's many great goals that you can think of, but I actually will say, I think as time goes by, I think we will probably remember him more for the fact that he did stay and then he did finish off in his last season winning Europa League trophy, which I think is a I don't know. It seems like this season we've almost taken it for granted or, you know, brushed off that Europa League trophy. But I mean, the fact that he stuck around and was able to win that with us and just showed that loyalty to stick through it through the end. And I think the emotion that he showed as well for just winning that one trophy instead of winning a bazillion trophies at another club that he probably would have deserved, you know, more trophies in his career. So I'm going to say the fact that he did stay because I don't know, he was here for a long, long time. So I think just the fact that he did only have that one trophy to show for it, but then it being such a massive trophy as well, got us back into the Champions League, sort of, I think, hopefully will kick us off back in the right direction. I think it was a very selfless thing for him to have done, really, to stick around as long as he did, and he got what he deserved. So I'm going to say the trophy, really, just because, I mean, every time you just see him lifting it, it's kind of like no better player, really, to be seeing lifting that trophy, actually, at the club, instead of just some, I don't know, random, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, like someone for lifetimes, you'd be like, that's a guy who deserved to lift that trophy.
No, I think, look, the Champions League or the Europa League moment is probably up there. I think one game that really sticks out for me, I think, wasn't it against Southampton? He bagged four inside like 30 minutes or something like that. Yeah, he was unbelievable, you know, and I think that sums up the Harry Kane and Son partnership. I think Harry Kane set up nearly all of them as well that day, and, you know, sums up one of the greatest partnerships I've ever enjoyed watching at Tottenham Hotspur. And then also the Puskas Award winner, you know, just to see that explosive nature of the guy pick up the ball, you know, and drive at Burnley, take the whole team on and then bury it. And then his goal actually against Arsenal, you know, under Jose was a nice moment as well for me. But ultimately, you know, seeing them win that Europa League right at the end was a very fitting moment for me. And I think, you know, it's, if any Spurs players deserved it over the years, you know, it's been him, and he deserved that moment. Martin, down to you.
It's hard to pick one. Obviously, the Burnley one where he just carved through the team, that we say it's typical Son, but he didn't do it every week. But it's moments like that stand out. Like, we'll all remember the Ginola one. You know, we're all going to remember the Van der Ven one recently. It's that iconic, you know, take on the whole team, you know. But for me, it's hard to pick one moment. It's like just his infectious smile when he scores, the elation. You know, you feel what he's feeling, because he ain't like some of them just walk away with a bit of arrogance. He just loved it and got it, and he enjoyed and relished every, you know, great moment he's had. And as I say, his loyalty and everything else, because he could have gone, let's be fair, he could have gone elsewhere and done what he wanted to do, but he didn't. He wanted to do what he done. And for him, I think he set out a personal goal to get that trophy. Listen, if it didn't happen last year, it would have been a bit hard for him to stay and try and go again. We all know that, but he did it. And that was his final swan song and that. And for me, just the whole package of Sonny. You know, 'cause at first he come over and everyone's like, "Who's this kid?" Do you know what I mean? And he had a season and he grew in, and then people started going, "All right, yeah, I can see it a bit." And then all of a sudden, once he got to grips with it, he was off and running, and he never stopped up until really that final season. And he's never had major big injuries. You know, he's always there for us, and just him as a person and a player, and you know, him being like one of us. You know, if he would have come through the ranks, I don't think we'd feel any different about him, because he what you think of him is just as top drawer anyway. So for me, just him as a person and the whole package, and all the great moments he's brought us over the years, and you know, for him to get that trophy, I'm really pleased for him on a personal level.
Yeah. And Jose, best Sonny moment?
For me, I mean, you guys have described goals, you've described emotions, you described, you know, the person that he was. And for me, yeah, I can bounce with all of them, but for me, it's the culmination of everything that you lot have said, right? And everything that people think, for me, culminated on that day in the parade, where he became Sonny, one of us, let his hair down, did what he wanted to do. He's won that trophy. He is our captain of the club. He is Tottenham through and through. He did what he wanted on that day. He had the keys. He had the keys to the whole of Haringey that day, and he absolutely enjoyed himself. And I'll always remember the parade and Sonny being at the parade. Obviously, like I said, everything you guys have all talked about, the goals, the person, you know, not wanting to leave the club, being a one-man person, you know, captaining the club, absolutely everything is encapsulated, and I agree with everything you guys said. But for me, it's the human being that he then was, and the outpouring that he did on that day at the parade.
And look, it's going to be an emotional, you know, start to the game today. You know, I reckon a lot of Spurs fans will be in unison singing his name, you know, stuff like that. A lot of tears. So hopefully, you know, G's the crowd up and we get going for the big game tonight, because that's why we are all here. But to Jack's point, it's sad that we're doing it tonight and it didn't happen at the parade for Sonny. MV Joker Davies says, one of the best partnerships ever in world football. Pretty sure they have the most goals and assists between each other than any other duo. Most lethal duo in the Premier League, the most lethal duo the Premier League's ever seen, my man. I mean, and the thing is, you know, I think what we've seen is at times when like, you know, once Kane left, Sonny, you know, he tried his best, but couldn't carry the team on his own. And then when Sonny was missing, Kane didn't have the ability to carry the team on his own. And, you know, I think it just goes to show that when you've got two great players, they find a way of playing with each other. And not only that, it was the love they had for each other. You know, they had no problem, you know, when they could have went for goals, assisting the other just to make sure of it and stuff. And an unbelievable partnership in my lifetime, one of the best I've ever seen. You know, I thought Berbatov and Keane was good, you know, and then Kane and Son have absolutely blown them out of the water. An unbelievable partnership, and to be honest with you, sad that they're gone. But look, I mean, it's a night like tonight where partnerships can develop, these can blossom. Hopefully, one or two players can click tonight and maybe form a new one, Eddie. That's what we're waiting for. But I think the biggest testament I think I can pay Son to wrap it up is the fact that he's gone. And many people would take him back this summer or this January if he wanted a loan move, you know, up until the summer. Says everything about the guy. But big up, Eddie. Oh, hopefully Harry Kane can come back one day and get his send off as well that I think he deserves. Big up, Eddie. Good to see you in the building. Generous. But guys, we are here for the big game tonight. I mean, we're back under the lights at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in the Champions League as we're hosting Slavia Prague. Spurs have only won one of our last 4 European fixtures. We currently sit 16th in the table, but we have picked up just 8 points from their first 5 games. And our chances of progressing to the knockout stages hang in the balance tonight, Jack. Is this a must-win if we want to finish inside the top 8 and avoid the playoff round? Because I would argue when the fixtures were announced, looking at them and the way they sort of unfolded for us, I think there was a big opportunity for us to get outside the top 8.
Yeah, I think we pretty much everyone would have said in the beginning stages that it was a pretty favorable draw for us. I think we've had, you know, some decent opponents that we've come up against, but it's not like we've been lined up against Real Madrid, Bayern Munich or something, you know, all in the same group. I think the only game that we really saw as probably a huge feat was the PSG game. And then I think, maybe some of us probably looked at also the Bodo Glimt game is also maybe a tough one, maybe as well. But apart from that, I think the majority of the games we saw is pretty winnable games and, ones that we would say were pretty favorable towards us. So, I mean, I still think there is a chance we could finish in the top 8. I think Newcastle losing to Marseille, I think from the last time, I think probably helped us out a lot. And I think there is probably a bit of games left for some of these other teams in the top 8 where maybe they could slip up. Even Barcelona, right, slipped up pretty heavily against Chelsea. I think they slipped up against Club Brugge as well. We just have to, I think, win the remainder of our games. And I think if we do, I think we probably could actually finish inside the top 8. So this one is a must win tonight. And I think it's a must win just off of the feel good of the last game. If we carry on another good performance into this one, I think Spurs fans start to gather momentum again, start to gather belief again. So absolutely must win game for our top 8 chances and also just for building momentum and some confidence, really.
The thing is, we're going to have to be more or less perfect over these last remaining games in the Champions League phase. And I think, you sort of look back on that Bodo game, and that could be the one that decides our fate in the end, where
Monaco,
we might end up. Yeah, Monaco, another one, but I think Bodo more so because I think that was the more winnable one. Monaco, don't get me wrong, I think with some of the form they were in as well, I think was winnable on the night. I think the way we approached it was absolutely shocking, but I think we might end up coming back to rue some of them games that maybe we were expecting to win and didn't. But we'll wait and see. We're still in with a hunt to getting outside the top 8, so we'll see how it goes on. I mean, Martin, after tonight, we finished the group with 2 extremely tough games, Dortmund and Frankfurt. I mean, surely tonight is a non-negotiable, regardless, how much of a Frank sexual you are. We have to get the 3 points.
No doubt. Say,
191.
If it was like Bodo or something come up later on, yeah, but with their 2 tough games, there's no beating around it. So if tonight out of the 3 of them is our best chance to get 3 points on the board, then it has to be a must win. Don't like saying that, but in context, it has to be, because if you don't get no more points in the next 2, let's say we get 1 point at the next 6, it's not going to change our position. And if other people grab a few points along the way, that's the one that's going to push. So tonight has to be 3 points. No ifs, no buts. It's as simple as that. And they ain't in great form, I don't think, in the Champions League. But I say, anything can happen tonight. But I hope the feel-good factor with what we've already spoke about and the feel-good factor from the weekend, if that all can be brought in and be a big cauldron of happiness, and the team start and they feel it and they get it, we could be on for a good night. If, on the other hand, they start slow and Prague start faster, I think you can see it turn very quickly. So I think it's down to the players to make sure they make it go the way it needs to go tonight. Because if we're all talking about, they must know, Frank must have said, look, lads, this has got to be 3 points. And hopefully they get it. It's not an hard message to get across to them, is it? So we'll see soon.
Yeah, no, look, 3 points. I think every Spurs fan is sitting there expecting 3 points tonight. But, I mean, is it going to be one of these performances where we're just going to scrape over the line because of rotation, Martin? Or, how realistic is it maybe to expect a dominant performance? Because you look at our European home record, 22 straight games unbeaten. Slavia Prague, when you look at them, they haven't won in the group yet. They're struggling for goals. I mean, on paper, this should be a comfortable night for Tottenham Hotspur. And off the back of the performance at the weekend, do you think it's, acceptable to... Do you think we should be expecting a dominant performance tonight?
I don't think we should expect it, but I think it's what needs to happen, and I think we should. It's, at the end of the day, then at the next 3 games, including this one, this has got to be their easiest chance. If they don't get that, and then they've got to take risks and make it harder for themselves in the next 2 games, then they've missed a chance, haven't they? So, yeah, it is definitely got to be done tonight and give us a springboard, because it stops now till January. Is that right?
Yeah.
The next game's in January.
So they've got time to play the others, put it out of their mind, and when they come back into it, they're in a healthier position than they would be if they didn't get 3 points tonight. So they're going to help themselves. They can park it up for a little while and then come back in a better place. But if they lose tonight, the pressure's on, because they must win 2 of the next 3. So if they lose this one tonight, they've got to win the 2 harder games. So it's down to them, innit? But
Yeah.
For us as fans, it's I don't think it's no questions asked. It's got to be done.
Yeah, you got to get the job done tonight and give yourself a chance then heading into January. Because come January, you might have a 1 or 2 extra players sort of back as well. You know what I mean? So I think we got to try and get the job done tonight. And I'd argue goal difference could end up being important. So
100%.
you know, I think to that point, Jose, you know, how much of that intensity do you think we can carry over into tonight's game? Because I think usually what you see with Tottenham is you see one good game and then you see a drop off in the next game. You know, especially when we've got European football. I mean, do you think we can carry over that intensity and that performance into tonight's game and play more or less the exact same way? Or do you think Thomas Frank being a big night might respect them a little bit more and put the handbrake back on?
Right. So first of all, I want to go back to the matches. Right. So last season, this format was the first time they did this format, as we found out because we were in the Europa League, but it was still the same format for the Champions League as well. Now, not many people knew about this format because it's the first time we've used it. And so I was having a conversation with people last year thinking, what do you think we need in order to get through? This is when it was the Europa, but you can look at Europa and Champions League at the same. And people who play the Football Manager games and stuff were saying, it's already out on Football Manager. It's the format they've got on there already. And usually you need to get around, if you get around 15 points, that should kind of more often than not see you in the top 8. Right, so you get 15 points. So we currently sit on 8, I believe. Yeah, but before today's game, we sit on 8. We win our home game today. We go to 11. So you got to find another 4 points to give you that 15. Now I'm looking at last season. Last season, Villa finished in 8th and got 16 points. The team that finished 24th last year, because obviously 9th to 24th, if you play the playoff ground, the team that finished 24th was Club Brugge last year, and they finished on that with 11 points. So did Sporting above them, and so did Man City. So 11 points last year gets you top 24. 16 points got you top 8 last season. So basically, tonight is there's no other way of looking at it. 3 points is a must tonight.
Yeah.
And then you've left yourself what appears on paper at the moment 2 hard games. It appears on paper by the way the teams have performed so far this season, although Eintracht got absolutely battered 6-0 at the weekend by Leipzig. So people will turn around and say that the harder of the 2 games is possibly going to be Dortmund, and we play them at home. However, that's on paper, and football was never ever played on paper. Furthermore, it's not where you are now, but it will be where we are on the 20th and 28th of January. It's the form that we have then in them 2 weeks, in them 2 dates when we play the games. But start tonight, get your 3 points in the bag, move yourself on up to 11 points, and then the last 2 games take care of themselves. We'll be in a better position. We'll know more about injured players. We'll know about what players we've got available. Not now, nearer the time to the last 2 games. And then you approach the last 2 games from there. But tonight is a must win. I will say that for me, I was there on Saturday, and I did say I spoke to Dave. I called you Sunday and had a chat with you on Sunday, Dave. And I said that for me, the first time all season that I've seen Thomas Frank send out our fullbacks, and they pushed on further than our forward players. So Porro was overlapping Kudos, and Jed Spence was overlapping Moani. We attacked. So if it weren't our wider players attacking you, then it was our fullbacks, and it created loads and loads of mayhem. For me, I'd like to see more of the same. I think we're kind of pushed into most of our selection with the back and the goalkeeper, because with the doggy being out injured now, you're more or less forced that you're going to have to play Spence and Porro as your fullbacks. I don't see him changing Van der Ven and Romero. I know Romero came off.
We'll get into team talk. We'll get into team.
Yeah.
But okay, so what I'm trying to say is that what I want to see, because I've seen a few people comment on this, I want to see the same team, if possible, and the same tactics adopted, even though it's a European game and not a Premiership game. If we adopt tactics like we do in a Premiership game and we apply these to a European game, then we will not be far off getting a really good result and definitely getting the 3 points.
I just think, he'd do himself a massive favour and buy a lot of belief back from the fans if he
100%.
tries to approach it the same way we did against Brentford. And when you look at the game against Brentford and you look back to Burnley, Man City, when we were winning at the start of the season, where Frank earned a lot of plaudits, he almost reverted back to that against Brentford at the weekend when he instructed the team to go press out of possession, press them nice and high. We got chances off the back of that. But we also showed that we don't have to be a long ball team. We do have the ability to be able to play the ball out from the back into the midfield, in through Shavi Simmons and open up the attack. And I think that's what many Spurs fans like myself have been waiting and wanting to see. And, we saw earlier on in the season, and for whatever reason, Frank decided to revert and go a different style and a different way, and it hasn't worked out. But I also think when you look at the squad of players that we got, they're more comfortable playing this way, and I think when you look at where Frank has got his wins from, it's clear that this is the way forward for me. And I think this is something that many Spurs fans can get behind, and I think it just buys them a lot of time in general with the Spurs fan base if he keeps approaching games in this manner. I'm not being funny, but we're up against Slavia Prague today. Yeah, they've got their history and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, we're fucking the mighty Tottenham Hotspur. We should be rocking up there and pulling their pants down, just like the under 19s done in UEFA Youth League earlier on today. They're struggling for goals. They're not great on the road. We should be putting in a dominant performance today and giving Spurs fans something to sing about. What I don't want to see is the double pivot being instructed to sit back in again. The fullbacks, only one goes and the other one doesn't. Take the handbrake off and let's go and put this game to bed early, because by doing that, then he can take off some of the better players, rest them then for the game on the weekend. What we don't want is this going on longer and being a tight and cagey fixture, because if it does, they'll turn the screw and they'll end up getting a goal out of somewhere. So I just think, and that was the big thing that I think Thomas Frank needed to adjust coming up from Brentford, is sort of changing that mindset, that mentality, not how you stifle the opposition, but how you're going to hurt the opposition. And hopefully we see a lot more of this going forward. I mean, look, Jack, going into that Brentford game, there was huge pressure on Thomas Frank to deliver both a win and attacking intent. Now, I wasn't that greedy. I would have just took the win, the performance and everything else was a bonus to me. But in fairness, he delivered both. Did that Brentford win maybe reset the mood around Frank, or did it just maybe paper over the cracks?
No, I mean, I think I was probably more selfish than you, Dave. I think I wanted a win, but I think I also wanted to see a good performance, because if we had only just gotten a win against Brentford, I would have felt like, he's just pushing kicking the can down the road, really. Like, we need to actually see far better performances, especially at home. So I think he did himself a lot of good favors by pretty much having a faultless one over the weekend. And then I think it's just about trying to replicate that as best you can. Not saying it's going to be perfect or it's going to be the exact replica. If it is, fair play, because then, we can really start to believe. But if he can try to, in any way, show very similar signs of sort of taking the handbrake off, allowing his players to express themselves, sending players forward, like you said, with the fullbacks and with the midfield as well. And if we do play some more exciting stuff, especially at home, Champions League night, right, around the festive period as well, I just think he buys a lot of belief back from this fan base and also probably from the players as well. And just make a quick point on the fact that I feel like with Thomas Frank, he would really benefit from showing that he can repeat performances like he did against Brentford, because we know, like, from his times when he was their manager, he's a guy that can survive in the Premier League. He's an established mid-table Premier League manager. He knows how to grind out results. He knows how to stay defensively solid. But the huge question mark was, can he evolve a bit more? Can he try to show that he's more than just sort of a mid-table, grinded out type of manager defensively? And what we saw over the weekend is that it is possible. It's just, is it repeatable? And if he repeats it tonight and is able to do a version of it over the weekend against Forest, I think we'll start to believe that maybe this guy can evolve and can actually develop into something a bit more than a very established, good mid-table manager. So let's see if he can do it tonight again.
And I hope the fact that all the noise did quieten down around him actually encourages him to do it again. Because I think if he doesn't, I think the knives will be straight back out on the guy. But Lazy 8 says, yes, but if you were approaching Slavia the same way you approach Brentford, are you also approaching Forest the same? I don't see why we can't, Nick. And I think, for me, I think the chopping and changing formation, you're not allowing players to settle in, find a rhythm, find patterns of play, understand each other's game. So I think, you should stick more or less to the same formation. And I think, you know, the ideas of pressing out of possession, I don't get why you can't do that. Or 15 other teams in the Premier League do it. We were one of the only teams that weren't doing it for a chunk of like 20-odd games. You know, that's something that you can keep employing. You know, playing out from the back instead of going long ball is something that you can keep employing going into every single game. Where I want the variations and where I thought, you know, I think, you know, I've been a little bit disappointed in Frank is pinpoint areas of the opposition where you know they're weakest. With all your stats and everything else going on in the background, it'll tell you where the weak link is and hammer at that. You know, we don't have to go at it every single game and go down the same avenues. And I'd argue that's what got us into trouble in the first place, because we were trying that down the right-hand side. Everyone sussed us out. Then they learned if the goalkeeper comes out and claims corner kicks, then you nullify Tottenham. And I think that, for me, this is where Frank can switch it up from game to game. Right, chip away at the right back today, chip away at the left back today. You know, that's where I want to see, you know, the stuff that he had at Brentford implemented at Tottenham. He was never going to survive playing the same style of football. And I just hope, like I said, that the noise that is quieting down around him after Brentford game, there was no bad noise around him or people sort of digging in further, going, no, I still want him gone and stuff like that. Everyone goes, okay, you've shown you can do it. More of this. And I just hope that encourages him to do more of the same, that maybe he feels like, now I'm not fighting the Spurs fan base. I understand what they want and I'm going to try and deliver the same. Where I will accept a little bit of a change is maybe against Liverpool. You're going to have to pick and choose your moments. That's where maybe you don't go on the press. That's maybe where you wait for a trigger press. For instance, like Konate, if he gets the ball, then you send the players rather than everyone sort of jumps up, Nick. But Martin, down to you. I mean, look, we've had a lot of conversations around Thomas Frank back and forth through sort of voice notes and stuff like that. And I know you've been a big fan of him. And, you know, I know some of that patience has been waning a little. But does Frank now need to show the same attacking style tonight to sort of convince fans that the project is actually maybe progressing and that just wasn't a once-off?
Well, he says he doesn't watch social media, but I hope from the low of the other week to this week where he changed it up and he give what ideally we'd like to see, the win, the handbrake off and all that. And I hope he has, or even if he ain't watching it, someone's got into him and said, look, you know, you've turned him around from a point where he's calling out the fans to everyone walking home on Saturday happy. And he's continued. It didn't just the dust settle and Sunday everyone sort of changed their mind and go, you know, the majority of what I'm seeing is people are still quite buoyant about it. And we're going, well, this is what we've been asking for. Yeah. And it's, you know, we know the quality is of a standard. It ain't a high standard, but it's of a good standard. And what we've been seeing is a low standard of a good standard player. So we know before he come in, we know these players and we know they're better than that. Forget last season's position. It was a complete weird season, but we know they're better than what they've been producing. So to go and play the way they did against Arsenal and then to see what they've done the week. And listen, yeah, it is Brentford and he knows Brentford inside out. And maybe it was easier for him to make that decision because he hasn't got to think about the opposition so much because he's lived and breathed it for 7 years. He knows their weaknesses. He knows their strengths. So maybe it was a bit easier. But I hope from that he has seen, as an intelligent man what he is and a tactician, that he can see on the previous 12 games, it's only worked in a couple. With this way, the players look better. The players look happier. The relationships look like they're building. But when they're going 3 at the back, 4 at the back, 2 in the middle, 4 in the middle, 3 in the middle, 1, 2, 2, 2.
Yeah.
They don't listen. They're fickle people like the fans are. They have a role. And if you've been from years and years, you run down the right wing and you do that, and all of a sudden you go, right, you've got to come in 10 yards, go back here, do a reverse pass, it's too much for them. Just keep it simple because football can be a simple game. So look, Mickey, Christian, if you go forward, you stay back. Jed, if you go up, you go up. There's a bit of space, and if you need to get back quick, you've got to get back quick. If you don't, then fine. But we'll let them and then pass them, and as Jose was saying, the overlaps and things like that. And, you know, that gives a chance to Kudus to drop in a bit because he knows someone's coming on the outside. So he ain't got to do everything on his own because he can play Porro in. Or he knows if he's right on the touch ring, Porro's just inside, he can play it into Porro. Porro can whip the ball in. That's building relationships in a structure that works. When it's changed every week, I don't like it. Fans don't like it. He can't like it. I think he's got to a point where he feels he's having to do these things. But I think he should take, if he takes anything from Saturday to go, My players are much better on the front foot and making the other team worry about us than me worrying about the other team. Obviously, the Liverpool, Man City, Arsenal, you can't be disrespectful and just think you can override them and do what you want to do and it's work, because it won't. But like, as I say, the majority of teams that we're playing, we should be able to express ourselves. But at the same time, you express yourself. But if you lose that ball, you get back. And I think, did you see with when Kudus tried doing the tricks and flicks and Brentford put the ball through it in early? Did you see Romero and Van der Ven? They went for him. And then they asked him about it in the press conference. He went, I like that. That's good. He said, because it's a respect. And now I like that. But when they're all having a go at each other for covering mistakes, you should have been there. You should be. That's a total different story. But when they're playing in a structure and it's working and everyone's happy in that, and then someone balls his up, call him out, because that's right. And then next time he won't do it and he'll get back to what he's doing. So there was a lot of positives that I want to take from the weekend. And I hope, he's going to do a few rotations tonight, but you can change personnel. But if you keep the structure, the approach and the mentality the same, taking out, putting Gray in or Bergvall in or dropping it, is you take one or two out, you're keeping the core. But when you're doing 6-7 changes and in a new position and a new setup, they're not going to get the best out of the player. So I really hope for his sake and our sake that he got something out the weekend like we did.
No, absolutely. And I wonder how much of it, where the players maybe put in that massive effort to maybe prove that, he needs to maybe start trusting them a little bit more, rather than, him having the overall bearing in terms of such a rigid structure where he's almost controlling every little bit they're doing on the football pitch. Sort of trusting the talent a little bit more to sort of, anyone that's played the game or even played five-a-side or Astro, when you're on the ball, you like to have that element of freedom where you can make your own decisions and stuff like that. And I think he just needs to start trusting the talent a little bit more. Play Shavi, I think, is absolutely key moving forward. We'll have a conversation around him. But I mean, Jose was the most, I would argue, the most positive and probably aggressive Spurs performance in about over 20 games. I mean, do you believe that approach, the way we approach Brentford is here to stay? Or was it just a one-off reaction, maybe delivered under pressure rather than a genuine shift in philosophy? Are we actually maybe seeing Frank have a genuine shift in that philosophy or not?
I hope so. I mean, if you look at when he managed Brentford, his sides at Brentford ended up being attacking, scored lots of goals. They ended up being attacking sides. We just haven't seen enough of it. Now, are we doing a disservice to our opponents because of the people that we played against, or is it all because of the tactics that he employed in certain games? I went to the Chelsea game. I was there at the Chelsea game. We lost 1-0, and to be honest, we beat ourselves. We never got out of first gear. We didn't even go into second gear. We never got out of first gear, and Chelsea didn't have to do anything to beat us. We beat ourselves, and it's not the first time I've seen us beat ourselves this season. We've done it in more than one game. Against Aston Villa when we got beat 2-1. Again, that game, first 20 minutes, 25 minutes, there for the taking. Scruff of the neck time. Take the game. We didn't, and Aston Villa didn't have to try hard. Okay, 2 goals from outside of the box they got, but they didn't try hard in order to beat us. So at the end of the day, is it that we need to respect our opponents and give them kudos for what they've done, or was it our tactics that let us down? As I said on Saturday, out of all the games I've beaten to this season, all the home games that I've been to, it's the first time I saw the approach where our fullbacks attacked and went beyond the wide players. I've not seen that all season. All season long, I've not seen it at all. To me, another thing, and I told you, Dave, on Sunday, Archie Gray. Archie Gray was pivotal in our win on Sunday. Archie Gray, it's no coincidence that Archie Gray started the Burnley game, which we won 3-0 as well at the start of the season. There's no coincidence that he played both them games in midfield before we had this project double pivot of Paulinho and Bergvall. Bentancur, because in the Burnley game, he didn't play them two. He played Gray there. Gray was absolutely pivotal. His legs getting around the pitch and stuff and winning his duels and that was pivotal to the way that we played against Brentford. And at the end of the day, I do agree with Martin that what we need to do is there has to be a structure. Everybody has a style of play. When you watch certain teams, you know which way how they're going to play against you. Whether you can stop it or not, that's a different matter. But you know how people are going to play against you. Pep's got a way of playing. Pep doesn't go away from the way he's playing. I hate to say it, but Arteta's got a way of playing, and he don't shy away from that way of playing. Klopp had a way of playing. You've got to have your own style and your own way of playing, and we need to find what that is and carry it on, so you don't give people different instructions. I mean, how true it is or not in the media that are saying that players are getting pissed off because Frank and the coaches keep changing the preparation and that just right up until kickoff and that's like throwing the players off. Pick a way of playing. I appreciate that you're respecting your opponent. Sometimes I think we might respect our opponent too much.
Yeah.
Right? They can do us damage and they can do this. So we need to counteract that by doing this to counteract them. No, if you're at home, especially at home, if you're at home, you impress and imprint yourself on the opponent. You
100%.
are the team at home. Every team at home should be doing that. Equally, Tottenham should be doing that. So therefore, weekend we played at home. We're at home again tonight. And whether you change, I don't know, who started. Bentancur started, so Paulinho may start tonight. Gray started, so you might get Papsar there. Shavi started, you might get Bergvall instead of him. But it's not about if you're going to make the changes with personnel, keep the tactics the same. Just keep it the same, and then like that, you build. This is the way this is who we are. This is the way we play, and you go further forward doing that than keep changing every week, saying now we're going to adopt this way of playing this weekend and this way of playing. I want us to adopt what I saw at the weekend. And I'll be honest with you guys, whether we're home or away, whether we're playing Crew or we're playing Man City, that's the way I want to play. I want to play the way that we did and be on the front foot like we were on Saturday.
In the short periods we've got between games, if you're keeping it the same, it's easier to practice and keep it familiar to the players in that short time. When it's a new rip up the script every 2-3 days, it's harder for them. So if you keep it and you say, right, today you're there, but we all know our jobs, it's got to be easy in this hard period where it's 3 games in 7 days for the players and the staff. So
I agree with that. I think he needs to find, like to Jose's point, I think he needs to find a formation and a way of playing that is fairly repeatable for most games. And then I think maybe the benefit of potentially hiring someone like Frank is that for these maybe really strong opponents that they're just better than you, to be honest, we know that he can switch things up and pick out maybe weaknesses, set up maybe very differently that might catch the opposition off guard. Whereas other managers will just repeat the exact same thing every single game, which can come to your own detriment. But I think Frank needs to still realize that, like, to the point, we are playing every 2 to 3 games or 2 to 3 days. You do need to find something that is repeatable for the majority part. And then maybe here and there against the PSGs, the Barcelonas of the world, you might actually pick something out to just change slightly, in advance. But you can't chop and change every single game. Like, we had games where we had 4 or 5 midfielders in the team and no wingers. And then the next week we're playing 3 wingers. And it's just that sort of type of chopping and changing that I think.
But it's home though, isn't it? Because away, if you look at our season so far away, we haven't been, if you look at the results and you look at some of the performances, we haven't been that bad. Where we've been bad is at home. So, start your front foot football at home. Impress yourself. Start your front foot football at home and then build on that. I've got no.
I would argue though, Jose. Like, I think we're inflating that a little bit. Like, Bodo away from home was shocking. Monaco away from home was shocking. And it does come down to that approach. Yeah, it works if you want to take a draw away, but them 2 games are probably going to stop us finishing inside the top 8, and that's the difference. For me,
PSG, Dave. PSG, the first game, Man City. Start the season. Some of the away games that we've put in performances.
Yeah, but Man City, we went for them. We didn't respect Man City. We went for them. PSG, we went for them. You know what I mean? We found their weakness. Yeah, the system was a little bit different, but we found their weakness. We went for them. There's been too many games this year where we have, to Martin's point, and this is something I tried to highlight when we brought in Thomas Frank. There's so much made about, well, he chops and changes for the opposition. Yeah, but he had 7 days on the training pitch to work on that at Brentford. At Tottenham, he's probably got 1, max 2, if he's lucky, between travel and everything else. You need to simplify this, and with the talent that we've got as well, you can bring in and implement a style of play. And it's really when the big games come about is where Thomas Frank will earn his reputation, where he'll earn his money. To Jack's point, the special operation. That's where he'll earn his stripes. That's where he'll make himself at this level. But the majority of games we play, we're expected to go in and take the game to the opposition. And if he was a bit braver against Bodo, against Monaco and teams like that, we probably would have beaten them on the day, and that's where I hope Frank is learning along the way that what he done at Brentford is never going to be copy and pasted. He has to streamline that, and I think there's ways he can be clever. Like, he doesn't need to be so commanding over it and stuff like that. He needs to just get a settled team, a setting rhythm. That's why I was moaning about the rotation at the start of the season. Everyone going, yeah, but it's great. Look at the amount of injuries he got last season. You're carrying so much more this year. It's a flawed process, I think, to get your team up and running and to build consistency and start building a run of results, you've got to try and get the same core out there, game in, game out, to build that. Once that's up and running, that's when then you start making little bits of rotation, because the system is implemented. Everybody knows it. You've got a good run of form. Confidence is high. Then you can start dipping in and out your players. And I think maybe this is where he's got it wrong at Tottenham Hotspur. And now, because he's done so much rotation, I'm actually at the point I'd like him to start being a bit more consistent with his formation he's putting out there, consistent with pressing out of possession, persistent with maybe trying to play out from the back. Now, obviously, not as much as Postecoglou, pick and choose your moments, you know what I mean? But do it a little bit more than what we have, and just get some of the ideal philosophies around that are non-negotiables, and then adapt little things in and around there. I'm going to say it's not a difficult job to do, but I think Frank, if he can do that, I think he can work at Tottenham Hotspur. But what we can't tolerate is him glazing Wolves to the point where we sit off them, glazing Bodo to the point where we sit off them, glazing Monaco. Regardless of who's in charge, these are teams that Spurs fans look at on paper and go, we should be beating them. We should be taking the game to them. And that's what we want to see. And hopefully now he's learned that off the back of the Brentford game. He has to do this more going forward. We are not set up as a team in terms of transfers. And even when we're in Europe, we are not set up to implement exactly what he done at Brentford. We employed him for the basis of what he done at Brentford, but there is a part of him where he's going to have to streamline that and adapt to make it more effective at a bigger club like Tottenham Hotspur. He's not going to just get time like he thinks he is. At a big club, there's a lot more pressure. Everybody's scrutinizing everything you do. We're on the TV every 3 days. There's pundits analyzing it and everything else. The pressure's on, and that's where now he has to learn that he has to adapt and play a bit more on the front foot, because if he doesn't, it's going to cost him his job before the end of the season. And I hope now there's a couple of nice run of games today. Forest, Liverpool aren't in great form, where hopefully if he does that, we can build a bit of consistency, and all of a sudden he gets into the January transfer window, more signings, and things are looking positive. So hopefully he learns that from me. I just think when he's trying to control absolutely everything, every little facet and stuff, then you're not really trusting the talent. That's something you do when you've got lesser quality players, where they are limited. That's where you control everything they do. When you come to a bigger club with better talent, that's where you got to take the reins off a little bit and just give them some non-negotiables.
It's almost like he's taken too much from his time at Brentford and applied it to Spurs, where he should almost take a little bit of it, like the special operation, like you mentioned, Dave. Like that actually could really come in handy for a lot of games. But it's almost like he's taken too much of what he's done at Brentford and applied it to Spurs. He needs to, in a way, allow himself to be a bit braver, allow himself to evolve into something better than that. And maybe he's just been too cautious in the way that he's tried to take from what he did at Brentford and apply it to Spurs. But not saying he should get rid of everything he's done at Brentford, because I think that was part of the reason they hired him, is they were kind of thinking like, listen, the last manager was a little bit too gung-ho. Maybe we just need somebody that can do something slightly similar, but he can also as well, if need be, adapt. And that was part of Thomas Frank's remit. The whole reason people loved him is because he was supposed to be able to sort of adapt, his play. It's just we've seen more of the Brentford, version and not as much of the weekend's version, to be honest. Completely agree with you.
And look, guys, anyone else anything to want to add to that before we maybe kick on the conversation a little bit?
No, let's move on, mate.
No, let's move on. Well, look, I think for months when things weren't going well, the argument was simply that Frank didn't have the personnel or attacking players to play a more expansive style. But no one said that when we were beating up Burnley, Man City, or even Brentford at the weekend, which I think, when they were saying that, it supposedly explained Spurs' low XG and lack of creativity. But the counter argument, and something I've always put forward, is that Spurs do have the talent, especially after the club invested in Colomwani, Kuda, Simmons, and that the problem was actually Frank's sort of rigid structure holding the attack back. Well, against Brentford, Spurs produced 16 shots on goal, played with far more freedom, and looked far more dangerous. Jack, does this maybe prove the attacking players were never really the problem, that Frank's system has been limiting the Tottenham creativity?
Yeah, I mean, I think I made the point that I would still like to see improvements to the quality of the forward line, but when you're seeing 0.05 XG being churned out, what was it, 2 or 3 games in a row at one point?
It was
Like, you can't really put that on the forward line. Like, no matter how poor they are, we're talking about Premier League players, in my opinion. Like, they should be able to at least generate. I mean, maybe I'm being greedy here. Around 1 XG would be nice. It seems like they should be able to get close to that at least. So I think that's where I was getting a little conflicted about even my own arguments about saying, I don't know if this forward line is really good enough. I'm just like, well, I can't really give, him that excuse when we're just absolutely offering nothing, though, going forward. No patterns of play, no real endeavor to try to get into dangerous areas, no real passing combinations that could actually maybe put a defense under pressure and under trouble. And finally, we saw that over the weekend against Brentford. And I mean, to be honest, I've watched a lot of the Premier League games. Like, I think we probably gave Brentford one of the 2-0 was kind to them. It could have been far more than that. So I think we probably gave them one of the better hidings that they've ever received all season. And I think Brentford are a good barometer for, what we could be capable of. They're not anything terrible, but they're not anything super special either. I think they're going to finish around they normally have, probably around, I don't know, 12th, 13th, so it's a good sort of team to put in a performance like that where that you've been the dominant side from pretty much minute 1 through minute 90. And it's just, let's see if we can repeat that. And to just sort of quickly on the quality argument again, that's where I've been sometimes really conflicted when people say, like, I've criticized the quality of the forward line at times, but when people say that Fulham is better than us, when people say that Brentford are better than us, when people mention these other teams that they say we're better, Sunderland are better than us, I'm like, come on, like, that's absurd. Like, you wouldn't actually really be talking about these teams, ahead of this season. And like, Colomwani clearly looks like a quality player. Mohamed Kudus clearly looks like a quality player. Everyone raved about Shavi Simmons, knowing what he is capable of. And you could even say as well, like, the likes of, I think, Odegaard is talented. Even the other ones that we have around the squad are talented. In the midfield, I think there are a lot of good players that we have to pick from. In the midfield, we have 2 literal world-class players in the back line with Romero and Van de Ven. So, yes, maybe there are bits and pieces that could be improved in the squad, for sure. But to say that we're as bad as some people have made us out to be, I think has been, in my opinion, a bit of a cop-out, really.
I think so as well. Look, at the end of the day, it did buy Frank time, to be fair, that side of the argument. But what I will say is, I think, you can't really point to the quality of the front line when Richarlison's your top goal scorer and Brendan Johnson's your second top goal scorer out of all the 4 players. But to the point at the weekend, the build-up play was so much better. And it's amazing it looked better when Frank actually put the 3 players out there we brought in to improve that facet of the game. He put all them out there, and look how much better we looked in terms of the build-up play. The ball was finding each other's feet. It was put in front of players rather than played behind players and stuff like that. So for me, I've always argued, the 3 players we've brought in, put them out there together, form your front line around that. And I think, looking at that, I think Mwani out on the left gave us great balance. Oh, yeah, I think he could have had a goal on the day. But what I think went unnoticed is he didn't lose the ball out there, which meant we could sustain pressure. He was able to, look after the ball in tight spaces and stuff like that. It actually freed up Kudus then to have a much better game than over the other side. Just keep Richarlison out of the build-up play, kept him in the box. And that's exactly where he got his goal. But the 100%. Big one is bringing in the guy. Everyone's sitting there going, we don't have a calm. We need to wait for Kulu and Madison. I'm sitting there scratching my head. I'm like, pay 50 million for a guy in the summer to play that role. You put him in there. You trusted him, and the guy absolutely ripped it up on the day. And I think Shavi Simmons has maybe proved his point. So for me, it's amazing what happens, you know, when you put out the players that we brought in to basically improve that whole situation. And hopefully Frank sticks to that now and moves forward with that and realizes that is the fulcrum of his best attack and that he needs to stick with that and stop chopping and changing and just giving Brendan Johnson minutes, because today he woke up and he had a cup of coffee and Sugar told him Johnson's the guy to play today. I'm fucking sick of it. Just stick with the same front line and let them go out there. I think the whole argument about the quality I've never really took on board, because it's like, we signed 3 players in the summer to improve this. It's like, and they're all players that most fans were happy with. So I'm glad that, you know, that point is sort of proven that if you actually take the handbrake off these players, let them go and play, and you play the players that we brought in to improve the situation, you can see a much better Tottenham, and that the XG that we're sitting there and tolerating it wasn't just a quality issue. It was more of a system and a tactical issue on that regard. Martin, I mean, look, Frank started Kudus right wing, Mawani left wing, Richarlison striker, and Shavi Simmons number 10, and it was the most fluid attack we've seen under him. Is this Spurs' best front four in your opinion now moving forward?
At the minute, 100%. It doesn't make sense to do anything else. Yes, we'd all upgrade Richie, so we upgrade Richie to Vlahovic, let's say. That front four can't change. You can drop one, give one a rest, and but you can't drop 3 or 4 of them, or maximum 1, I think, because they've got to build their relationships, especially for Xavi. If he's got that little free roll, because he will come back and defend, and he will come in and put the tackle in. So to say he's an out 10, like what we grew up to, like a Teddy Sheringham, a second striker, that ain't what a 10 is these days. A 10 is, as you say, a can. So we give it that number, but I don't really think it is. It's more of an attacking 8, like a Paul Scholes type thing, isn't it? But for him, he's bulked up, right? He's been in the gym. He's working his socks off there, right? And maybe Frank has seen something, and he's not put him into these 4 games and tried to get something out of him. You can call it a tactical masterclass on Frank if he knows that. Or has he just got lucky and Xavi's gone, no, fuck you, I'm going to show you. But whatever the situation is, it worked. Now, I say, a few people have said Mawani is good on the left and coming in. And actually watching it the weekend, I tend to agree. So I think he's a technically good player. He's got a good football brain on him and he knows where it is. I just want him to get a goal. Where at the home stadium, like Xavi did the weekend, and it propelled forward for him. But as I say, my situation with Xavi is like, I am rose-tinted glasses.
Well, we're going to dig deeper into Xavi in just a
moment.
I'll
leave that for now then. All right.
Ironically, when Xavi actually plays, we concede less goals, which shows the more on the front foot we are, the better it is for Frank's defensive structure. Anyway, sorry, go on.
But yeah, it's like, as I say, like we were saying earlier, Kudus knowing if he's right out on the touchline, he's got 2 players on him, he knows that leaves space for Porro to come on the inside, and Porro's making that run. And vice versa. If he's inside, he knows Porro can go outside. That's a relationship that works. Yeah. And it's all right, if it's experiment day 1, it wasn't a failure. So right, I've got to stick with that, them 2. And then if you look at Xavi, and like I think Mawani, they've come from top clubs. Let's be real, they've come down to us, right, for where they've been, right? He's 90-odd million euros at PSG. Now he's with us, and we got him on a free as a loan. So, but he's technically good. Richie's Richie, we can't change him. But at the minute, he's on a 17 in 24 or something ridiculous that I can't quite believe, because I don't remember him scoring that many goals. But the numbers are there saying that, so you can't change it. If you want to say, like, if Mawani limped off the weekend and you go, right, well, we're going to leave him out tonight because we need him more on the weekend, put Odebert in. Now Odebert has played with Xavi at PSG, so they've already got some sort of understanding, so it shouldn't be a massive drop off in the relationship, maybe a little in quality, but he can improve. And as I say, the only way they improve is by getting on more and building these relationships. So I think there's a lot of hope there. Of course, we'd like to upgrade and have as many options as we as fans would like to see. But you know, at the minute, it ain't bad. But if the rest of the team is sitting back and the midfield two are instructed not to go forward, then too much is being put on that number 10 or the cam. So whether it's going to be Madison, Xavi, Kulusevski's going to come back, but it's going to take him a while. He ain't going to come in and just be straight top of his game. So there's going to be a month bleeding in. So we've got to work with what we've got and slowly introduce these things. But if you're leaving two sitting back and the four behind him and the two fullbacks not going on, you're going to have the three up front and you're going to make that one player in the middle overwork. And they can't do that much work. They have to have other people to work with around them and make it all click rather than it be defence, one man in the middle and attack. And he's got to be the springboard for everything. It's too much. But you know, it all comes down to relationships and understanding where they're playing. And the structure keeps the same. Maybe one or two personnel change, but they know and told. If he's inside, you go past. If he's on the outside, you come in. 2 instructions. That's all you got to do in the game. Simple.
Yeah. For me, like when I look at that Brentford game, it's the first time where we haven't been so predictable in a couple of years. Actually, you know, it's because I think, and this is why I think he needs to really stick with Mwani out the left, Simmons in the number 10 and Kudus on the right-hand side, is because we've been far too predictable. Like last year, teams knew if they stopped us down that left-hand side, they stopped Tottenham. This year, now they know if they stop us down that right-hand side, they were stopping us. Whereas against Brentford, it's the first game where I actually looked at it and go, they can't just block up that right-hand side and double mark players, because then they're leaving Shavi Simmons free. They're leaving Mwani free, who are also going to cause them problems and are also going to cause them damage. We kept them honest. But I also look at that and I think going into the bigger games, he can also play counter-attacking with that front three, because they will be able to get hold of the ball and pose a threat going the other way, which means we're not stuck as deep as we were against Arsenal or your Chelsea's, because they're all good enough players to be able to get on the ball, play combination plays with each other, but also get turned and drag you up the pitch without losing the ball or without your touches of a Johnson or a Richarlison where it comes down and it's gone off them 10 yards and all of a sudden, you know, it was an easy control and you're looking at now a 50-50 ball and stuff like that. So I think that is something that I think Frank can sort of work around and build his tack around. And I think it would work on the counter-attack too, going in against some of the bigger teams. So, Jose, I mean, should Frank now commit to this front four for running games instead of rotating constantly now?
Unpopular opinion, and I don't care, right? The one player that I'd take out of there is Richarlison. Watching Richarlison this season, whether I've been in the South Stand, the North Stand, the West Stand, or the East Stand, the one thing that sticks out to me every game that we play, and I know Richarlison's got some goals this year, but every time we play with Richarlison, the ball doesn't stick. Richarlison, the ball just doesn't stick. Richarlison, you play the ball up to him, fumble, dumble, the ball doesn't stick to him. He likes playing the man more than the ball itself. I would actually like to see Mwani start up front. I think Mwani and then Xavi in the hole, I think may work better for us. Mwani's got something about him. Mwani can turn players. Mwani can run at players with the ball. Mwani can hold the ball up. Mwani can do everything from what I've seen so far. And what I would do is I would actually like to see Mwani play up front. So you're not changing it too much. Like someone said earlier, maybe change one player if you're going to change the front four. At the moment, there's only player that I would change. I would change Richarlison. And on the left-hand side, I'd bring in Matthias Tell. Either bring in Matthias Tell and play him off the left, or bring Matthias Tell and play him up top and keep Mwani on the left. I think with Matthias Tell, he offers you something. Matthias Tell has got something to prove. Matthias Tell, he gets Tottenham. Honestly, he really does get Tottenham. Watching him when he came on against Man United, he was a game changer for us when he came on against Man United. He was playing off the left. He went out and helped in the middle. And I just think he gets a raw end of the stick. I think Tell's passionate for Tottenham. And I just think that with Tell, I just think it's like anything. You've got to be given game time. By be given game time, you build your confidence and you learn the patterns of play with the players that you're playing with and stuff like that. He's previously played with Shavi as well at PSG, you know. So, at the end of the day, for me, if I was going to change the one player at the moment from what we've got, is I would bring in Matthias Tell and change him for Richarlison. And however you wanted to do it, whether it's Moani goes to centre or Moani stays left and Tell goes centre, I just think that the fluidity as well with bringing Tell, you've got players that off the ball can move around. They won't stay static.
Yeah, no, I get you.
Where I feel that a lot of Richie's play is static because he doesn't move away from the centre and he just static play. And like I said, it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating being at the matches and being able to see the whole game. So if you're in the north or the south stand, you can see the whole pitch, so you can see the whole game. And the amount of times that they play the ball to Richarlison, and Richarlison is looking at playing the player before the ball gets to him, and when the ball does come to it, it doesn't stick. And you obviously it's not rocket science. You lose possession, and then you're up against it when you lose possession. We need more. We need to hold the ball and have the ball more. So for me, the only change out of the players that we've got, because we can only pick from the squad that we've got at the moment, and that's it would be Tell for me. Sorry, what you can't think of Kulu, you can't think of Madders, you can't think of these players. These players are long-term injuries.
Yeah, no,
Martin's quite right. When these players do end up coming back, then they have a period of time that's going to take them to trust their bodies again, get their mindsets back in the game, and that could probably take another 6 months on top of when they do come back.
No,
right?
it's dangerous to rely, sitting there and going, oh, when the injuries come back. Madison's not going to be back for a long, long time. Kulusevski, he's not going to be back for another while. We've got to make the best of what we've got. And to your point, look, I wouldn't be opposed to Mawani going back up front and putting Odegaard on the left-hand side, but right now, Richarlison is the club's top goal scorer, and whether people like it or not, he's going to continue to get picked, off that basis. But, we're going to have a conversation around Richarlison in a minute because, Martin did bring up, he does have 17 goals in his last 24 starts for Tottenham. And I know he's not the most pretty guy, but, neither is Jean-Philippe Mateta. Most people say they would bring him in. So I think maybe are we being a bit harsh on Richarlison? We're going to have a conversation around that in just a moment. But I do want to have, a bit of a conversation around Shavi Simmons. But firstly, Faz Radfar says, let's get my score prediction right. Shavi ×2, Mawani ×2, Spurs 4-0. Well, tonight, hopefully, could be an occasion that might come in tonight, especially off the back of that Brentford game. It's given us a bit of a boisterous mood. I think the big question is that a change of philosophy in here to stay, or whether it's not? I think we'll find out tonight. Faz Radfar, good to see you.
Should have been 4-0 the last game, if you ask me. Faz Radfar, we had plenty of chances. It's unfortunate. Could have gotten his best score prediction.
The Irish goalkeeper had a good game, and so it stopped it really. But their goalkeeper shouldn't be that great tonight. But look, Jack, I mean, before Brentford, Shavi had been benched for 4 straight games, despite all the data showing Spurs perform better when he starts. We win more, and ironically, we also concede less. He returns to the 11, scores 1, sets up 1, and transforms the attack. Given that impact, does Thomas Frank now have no choice but to start Shavi Simmons moving forward? Because you would argue maybe some of the selections before have been around, maybe he's not physical enough or tall enough, whereas now I think, he may not have that, but he certainly solves an XG problem that we have.
I'm nervous that he might not start him this game, and I just think that'd be a massive mistake, really, because you have to reward Shavi Simmons for playing as well as he did over the weekend and giving us a heavy, or at least contributing heavily to that free-flowing football that we saw over the weekend. And I think if you just take him out for this game, you just sort of halt or potentially hurt and delay that momentum that he could be building, that confidence that he could be building right now. And I think the teammates, Mickey Van de Ven and a few others as well, seem to have some good sound bites about him, saying that he's been waiting for an opportunity like that, and they've been waiting for a performance like that from him. I think you just have to give him another start tonight. And to be honest, like if you want to play him on the weekend, then I wouldn't mind if he's then just taken off a little bit early. To be fair, I could totally see that being reasonable, really, where maybe you just give him the start and then probably look to bring someone on else, later on into the game. But I think he just has to start to build momentum, build a bit of confidence in his legs, and hopefully as well just deliver another beautiful attacking performance like we saw over the weekend, which pretty much came through him. And I don't think you could make the excuse if you were Thomas Frank, I don't think you could make the excuse saying, oh, well, you know, we're a little bit worried about the physical aspect in this game. It's like, it is only Slavia Prague. But then also, like, the guy is not really, he's not a mug defensively. Like, he does work hard. He does get stuck in. He does press. Like, he's not someone that, I don't know, maybe is a Ndombele or like, maybe that's the best example. Ericsson, maybe you could throw in there a little bit. At one point, Madison, we kind of faulted, you know, in his first season under Ange for not really being willing to get as stuck in as maybe we would have liked him to. But I don't think you could say that with Shavi Simmons. He seems to be having no problem with, you know, working hard defensively and tracking back. Even when he's had bad games, he seems to have, you know, at least not faulted defensively for the most part. So I think you have to play him this game, to be honest, Dave. I'm worried that he might not, just because he chops and changes so much.
Yeah, well, I think if he does, you're sort of frustrating the player even more. You know, you're killing the player's confidence then, because he's going, look, what do I actually have to do to get a run of games? You know, these attacking players, they want to be playing consistently. They don't want to be on the bench. They need a run of games. They need to play week in, week out. Attacking players are different to your midfielders and your defenders. They have to get a feel of the ball. They have to find their rhythm. You know, it's a little bit different. And that's where consistency in team selection is absolutely key across your forward areas. But, you know, and I think it goes back to last season. We were much better when Madison played than when we were without him. Stats will show you that. And I think when you look at the stats around Shavi Simmons, it's the exact same thing. And I think, you know, this is where Frank really needs to make a change, and it's just put your belief in the kid. At the end of the day, yeah. I know he may have wanted a Gibbs White or an Eze, but the reality is he wanted a player that could play there. We delivered one of a certain level of standard. It's not like we've gone out to the Japanese league and brought him in an unknown and said, make it work. We brought him in a player of a certain standard. And, you know, if he wants to really unlock Tottenham, you know, going forward, this guy is the absolute key around it. And I think he's got to build his attack around this guy, and that he's got to be that sort of central focus. Martin, would you agree on that? And do you think Frank has maybe mismanaged Simmons up to this point, or did Shavi need time to adapt? Because it does look like at times Shavi has been frustrated with coming off and stuff like that.
Yeah, I feel he's been made, like, you know, it's like, oh, we're not playing bad, you're not doing it. There is a bit of that, I think, mismanaged by Frank, but at the same time, there is a bit that he's had to get used to the league. Now, sitting on the bench ain't going to get you used to the league, ain't going to get your timing right, that you had 2 seconds in Germany, you get 1 second here. You know, the only way you're going to learn that is on the pitch. Now, there has been talk of him, like, working on the gym. Listen, whatever I say to him, he will work hard, he will train hard, and he is determined. You know, he's been brought up in the top academies and top teams. They don't allow you to have days off and, you know, just swan around and do what you want because you're a prima donna and you're this, that. He's been a star since he was a kid, and his dad has blooded it into him that he ain't going to get anywhere just by name or showing a few tricks. He's got to work hard to get where he wants to get to. Now, hopefully now, everywhere else he's been, it's been, you know, promise, move. Hopefully now he's got a 5-year deal. He settles down. His family are in London with him, and he's got the right people around him, and he settles down and goes, well, I'm here for 4 years now, you know, and he goes, this is my home. This is where I'm going to be. This is where I want to lay my roots. This is where I want to make it all happen. He's 22. So let's say he gets to 26. He's going to come into his prime at the end of that contract. So by then, 4 years of playing in the Premier League, you know, look at Hazard and people like that and Defoe. You haven't got to be big to play in the Premier League. You've got to be smart, clever, and strong. Right? It ain't all about you've got to be built like Dan Burn, because it ain't. You know, there's many a short players. Look at N'Golo Kante in the middle of run the Premier League from that middle. And he, you know what I mean? He's like a little baby you can cradle in your arms. Do you know what I mean? You haven't got to be big. You've got to be clever. And I know Chavi's got a brain, as I say. You know what it's like here with him. The stadium he played in is now called the Shavi Simmons Stadium. He's like a little god out here. Do you know what I mean? He does come back and see him. You know, he don't forget his rules. He's a humble kid. Do you know what I mean? And watching it the weekend, that ball from Porro was something else, right? That he was played down. But if you watch it from the angle from behind the goal, it goes all the way down the pitch, and as it bounces, it then just turns in on like a right angle, and he's read that all the way,
They're brilliant.
and then does that delicate little perfect pass. He didn't just smash it across; it was touched in perfect. So not anyone can do that. The pass Porro done, the pass Xavi done, and the finish from Richie was made to look quite simple. But I think that was a very clever technical goal by all three of them.
But I also think, Martin, that second goal maybe, you know, sums up that maybe you're not going to carry a player. Sometimes you worry about that with a number 10, that physically on the day if it's going against you, you're carrying a player. But, you know, he took a bad touch.
And what did he do? He got up, slid in, got up, lost it again, got up. And there was two of them in that ball. We took it both off two of them, run down. He's got three of them around him and a goalkeeper coming out of him. And he just done what he needed to do. It was perfect. He ain't shy. And, you know, he's small and light and he's been bullied a little bit. But now he's getting it. Like, listen, you've got to remember, the day he signed, he'd done all his photo shoot and the video and that. Next day, it was international break and he was off. So he and then the same with Moani. It was like, you got your dead leg, you're out. They had no chance to build up momentum and start with a pre-season, get to know the players, get to know the team, get to know the manager, get to know the staff around. They were just thrown straight in at the deep end. And Moani, it took him a couple of games, and now we're seeing the best of him. And hopefully now, Xavi's put the work in, and I hope that Frank does see. I've got no one else, right? Let's make no bones about it. Burville can do a little job. Saar can do a little job for 15, 20 minutes, but they've not got the technical ability and the football brain and the IQ and to see these passes and have these things going on that you have to use them. I can't say you're going to run him into the ground. But if Frank don't play him tonight and reward him, not just reward him and say, well done, son, see what you did Saturday? That's what you do again tonight. I don't want to see no more, no less. You go do that. There's your instructions. No tactical boards and magnets around. Simple as this. You know what to do. Go and play the ball. Get it to him, go yourself. And I think he deserves the reward. You know, Dave, I'm always going to...
No, but look, Martin, you know me. I was
I'm trying to be as impartial on it as I can.
No, but look, you know me. I was a bit skeptical around the signing, right? You know, I was sort of one of them. You know, I was like, look, this guy isn't immediately going to drop into the team and solve all of our problems. There is going to be an adaptation period, and then, you know, it's all about whether the kid is going to sort of fight through that and come out the other end. But I think from what I've seen of him over time, the more I see of him, the more I know that if we put him out there a bit more consistently, I think he is the key to unlocking that forward, because that our forward player, and you know, where we can really go at teams and cause them a problem at the other end. Because our big problem over the last 20 odd games, you know, before that Brentford game, we won 3 of our last 14. Our big problem in that run was we couldn't lay a glove on the opposition. You know, and an opposition is always going to create a chance, and they were taking them up the other end. So, you know, it's unlocking this forward line is absolutely key to Thomas Frank's survival at Tottenham Hotspur. And I think the key is Shavi Simmons, because when you look at him, there's just little bits and pieces that I've seen that I think if Frank puts more trust in him, we'll get more out of him. I'll go back to that Leeds game. You know, all the channels were blocked up, no problem. A little dink over the top, something I've seen Modric do, Ericsson do. That player on the pitch that just has that different level of vision compared to everybody else nearly scored off the back of it. In fact, if Toro did score, people would still be jacking off to it in a dark room today. You know, you look at Copenhagen. It's the first game I've seen where I've seen a player in the middle link up with the left, the right, and through the middle. Same at Brentford. And, you know, it means then we're not one-dimensional. We're not just teams can block up the right-hand side, because that's what was happening. They were just doubling up, tripling up on Kudus, eliminating that threat. Then everyone's going mad at Mohamed Kudus because he's not beating 3-4 players and creating and stuff like that, because oppositions are literally setting up, going, well, if you stop him, Tottenham ain't going to score, and they take that gamble, and it's been proven time and time again. So, you know, in order so that we're not as predictable going forward, he's got to start trusting Shavi Simmons more to do the job. At the end of it, that's what we brought him in to do. And going and scoring goals up at the other end is what's going to be key to Thomas Frank surviving at Tottenham and getting that time that he's begging for in the press. So it's absolutely key from now on that he starts him in that position and looks to get the most out of him. Because if he doesn't, we're going to end up reverting back to that defensive shite, and the pressure's going to be straight back on him. So I think he's absolutely key in that regard.
If you look at it, Dave, like, comparing him to Wirtz, right? They both come from the same league. Wirtz is vastly more experienced, got far more games under his belt, and You know, he come in, he's twice as much as Xavi, right? He had a pre-season pretty much with Liverpool. He's had all the bedding time. He's done nowhere near. Xavi's done more than him already, right? And he's been out for games. So, you know, I think we have to just look at it from a realistic point of view. You can't just come in and go, he's our saviour day one. Has to have time. And I think he's adapted quite quickly and quite well. And if he plays like that again tonight, how he did Saturday, then we can see some consistency in him and we can get behind it and go, right, yeah, this might be the player to do it. So
I think that's the key. If he is thrown out there tonight, he has to follow up.
It's on him now. If he gets to start, it's on him.
Yeah, and if he does, he drives that home, and then, you know, I think he'll get fans on his side when he's not starting and stuff like that. So I think you're absolutely spot on there. Jose, anything you would like to maybe add on Shavi Simmons, or, you know, do you think we've butchered that to that, and then we can go after talk about Richarlison?
It's interesting because I can see the comments. Yeah, I've got nothing more to add, but it's interesting because you've got Shavi. They're saying that he's 5'10" and that Kudus is 5'8". But you can tell who's played in the Premiership for a few seasons and who hasn't when you look at them two. With the Kudus, I can't believe it.
Is Kudus only 5'8"?
Yeah, he has got unbelievable. He's tiny because when who was the player from Brentford? Christoph Ayer, I think, was marking him in the first half.
Or something, yeah.
Ayer is about 6'2", 6'3", 6'4". He's tall. Anyway, Kudus was given the ball.
5'9", yeah.
He was taking it on his chest with Ayer right up on his jacksie, and he was holding and throwing Ayer all over the place.
He's so strong though, when he can.
Yeah, and then they substituted Ayer at half time, and they brought Rico Henry on, who's more or less the same height as Kudus. And I will say, the first two tackles in the second half when Rico came on, Rico smashed Kudus twice before the ball came to him to try and knock him off his balance. After the second time, every time the ball went up, Kudus would smash Henry before receiving the ball. And yeah, it's just, we got two. And the other thing I'd say, Shavi, watching him Saturday, he was getting himself about. He was putting himself. He was getting in the tackles. I mean, everyone saw the tackle that led to him creating his own second goal. But he was doing that throughout the game, and you know, he's getting used to it. He's getting adjusted to life in the Premiership, and he ain't scared to put his foot in. It's not what you bought him for. It ain't what you bought him for. But he ain't scared to do that part of the game either. But
the thing is, I think on that side of the game, it's important in the Premier League. You might get away with that in the French league or the Spanish league, you know, where maybe it's not as robust or as physical. But in the Premier League, you have to have that element where you have to look after yourself and be able to do it out of possession. You know, I think James Maddison realised that when he came to Tottenham Hotspur, that, you know, everyone mucks in here, you know, and that you are going to have to show that bit of aggression out of possession and that. And, you know, I think that will actually serve Shavi Simmons well in the long run, because we can sit here.
He's got that about him.
Yeah, like the thing is, we can sit here and say he needs to bulk up and stuff like that. He doesn't. You look at Luka Modric, very slight frame when he came to the Premier League. It's not even about bulking up. It's just about adjusting your game slightly, maybe dropping off your opponent, getting loose 5-10 yards so that when you get the ball, you have time to get turned and stuff like that. Maybe instead of holding up the ball and ensuing that physical battle, already scan the pitch and you hit it off first time. He has that sort of ability. So there's different ways around it where he can adjust his game rather than just bulk up. Because I think sometimes if you bulk up a player, you lose that agility that actually makes them difficult to play against. Whereas I think it's just about him maybe learning little techniques, you know, that where he can survive. A bit like what Luka Modric done when he came to the Premier League. Yeah,
he's doing it. He's learning and adapting. He's doing it. That's what I was trying to get to. Yeah. Watching him Saturday, and I've seen him in other games as well. And I can see more and more of him that he's got that nasty side in him to put foot in to do the.
He's learning quickly
to do the dog work. He does the dog work as well as being a creator. Do you know what I mean? He's got that all around game about him now,
and that's what will help him survive at this level. But look, anything else you want to say on Shavi before we move on to Richarlison? Because I do want to have a little bit of a conversation around Richarlison.
Let's move to Richarlison, eh?
Right, let's go.
Hot topic.
and look, I'll put the question up. Whoever wants to jump in on it first can. But Richarlison has scored 17 goals in his last 24 Premier League starts for Spurs. So why do so many Spurs fans still not rate him? And I mean, like, What more does he have to do? And the reason I ask maybe is Richarlison judged a bit unfairly, because I know he's not the most prettiest on the eye. He's not Harry Kane, but he's effective. Stats will sort of show that to a certain degree. And, again, the reason why I ask is because if I dangled John Philip Mateta in front of Spurs fans' face, they would take him within a heartbeat. If you actually go watch Palace, there's a lot of opportunities he shanks and stuff like that I think actually goes under the radar and isn't highlighted enough. So are we unfair to Richarlison a little bit here at Tottenham, even because he's not the most technical or pretty, but he's scoring goals, and that's what a striker's supposed to do?
I'll let Jose go first on this. He's glitching. Look, see him. Look, he's chomping at the bit. Look.
I ain't chomping because I've already spoken about this fella already, and watching him and watching him this season. When you're watching him up and close and that, you get a different viewpoint to watching him on telly, in my eyes, and watching him and seeing what Tottenham try to do and how they try to play through him, like to utilise him and that. It's just, the ball just doesn't stick. And for me, he looks so much that he wants to play the man rather than the ball. So he's not waiting for the ball to come to him. And when the ball does come to him, he has got someone on him, but he's more worried about the player on him than actually receiving the ball and actually doing something with it. Yeah, he might have. It's funny because that stat just doesn't ring true to me. What you're saying, Dave, about this. I know, but it does. I know, but it doesn't ring true.
Doesn't want to believe it.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the person that I'm going to watch the matches and the person that I view on the pitch. It doesn't relate to someone that scored 17 goals in 24 games.
But maybe to my point earlier, though, Jose, that if you actually put the right three creators in around them, you just leave him to get in the box in between the posts and finish off moves. That's what he's effective at, quite clearly.
Yeah, possibly, but okay. On the eye test, and I know I wear glasses, but I know what I'm seeing at the ground. And on the eye test, he just looks like the weakest link. He really does. Every time he plays, he just looks like the weakest link. Although, you know what? He scored against Man United, right? And that was the luckiest goal. I thought, for all of them, I was in the West Stand, right in front of where the shot came in from, and I'm wondering why is Richarlison celebrating like a madman, taking his top off and doing right in front of me? Why is he going mental? And I didn't realise that it flicked off him. He got the slightest of touches and he scored the goal. And I was like, why is he doing things? Anyway.
Right place, right time. That's what strikers do.
Do you know what? Honestly, watching him from in the ground, you get a different mind's eye. I get a different sight and a different player to what these stats will talk about. At the end of the day, like I said, to me, he just seems more conscious on playing the man than playing for the ball. So, at the end of the day, if the goals might say that, but for me, it's not. I'm not seeing what these goals deliver. He must be getting flukiest goals in the world because, some of his play. I mean, I will say that the goal he took against Brentford, he did take that well. He took it well because.
What do you mean? Like, come on! Like, if he misses that, like, you're absolutely scathing him.
But Shavi Simmons fizzed that.
He's missing now, isn't he?
Yeah, but it weren't just a pass across the box. Shavi Simmons absolutely put the laces through that, putting it into the box.
He had to.
I thought it was gonna hit Richie and just go ba-dum, 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 everywhere, but it actually went in the goal. So I'm gonna say he took it well. I'm gonna say that.
I don't know. Maybe you missed a recent sitter in one of your 5-a-side games, and that's why you're comping him. If he missed that, I would have gone absolutely mental at the guy. I think there have been plenty of times he's whiffed chances like that actually this season. To be fair,
well, actually, Jack, the stats also say he's the best player in the Premier League, outperforming his XG.
Yeah, that's crazy to me, to be
Stop,
honest.
Dave. Stop.
Stats are shit. Stats are only there to further someone's
No, I mean,
argument
it's,
for
The
or
only reason
against.
why I bring up the argument is because I nearly fell off my chair when I read this.
No, I mean, to be fair, actually, when I think of the misses he's had that have been atrocious, I think they were in the Champions League. I don't know if they were in
Yeah.
the Premier League. So maybe in the Premier League, he actually has been far more clinical. And when you think about the goals that he has scored in the Premier League, the bicycle kick to the halfway line, chip over Raya,
Yeah,
that certainly is going to
good
help your
goals.
XG numbers, a whole lot, right? When you're scoring goals that are 0.000 something XG and you're putting them in the back of the net. I think he joins a funny list of strikers that we've probably seen over our times watching football that do at times appear to be pretty useless, but find a way to continue to score goals. For whatever reason, because they put themselves in the right areas, they're willing to battle, they're willing to be brave. He also, as well, like on his day, I mean, especially under Ange, I feel like I don't see it as much as it was under Ange or with Frank. We know he can work really hard off of the ball. He can press players. He knows how to just be a bit of a shit house. Like, he just joins this list of many strikers I feel like I've seen where it's like they've made a decent career out of just being, a bit to handle. Like, they're kind of just annoying to come up against, but they're not necessarily that pretty on the eye or anything. And I think he happens to be one of those players, really. With Richarlison, yeah, I think he's also a bit of a purple patch player. Like, when you have him in a moment where he is just scoring goals, he's great to have around. And then there are also periods, like I would say, like, yeah, maybe against, I think the other game, Dave, that I'm thinking of that he had that huge miss was, I think, against Newcastle in the cup. I remember he had an absolute shocker of a day where he had 2 chances, I think, that he just, again, completely whiffed at. So he's a funny one, Richarlison, really. There are times when I absolutely love the guy, and there are times when he really does make me lose brain cells, to be perfectly honest.
Well, can I say to you, Jack, he doesn't make me laugh at all when I go to the matches. He makes me cry. He doesn't make me laugh. He makes me cry at the matches.
He must be in the toilet when he scores all these goals, Jose.
Okay, I'll tell you what, I don't even know where the toilets are in the stadium, but I might have to go and seek them out and find out where they are and probably hide there when he plays.
So everyone should start going to the stadium with a loaf of bread and start throwing at him when he scores goals.
Seriously.
Look, do you know what? Look, I think when it comes to Richarlison, look, to be fair, I only wanted to bring it up because I thought it was an interesting conversation to have around the guy because everybody shits on him. But he's the club's top goal scorer. And to Jack's point, they all haven't been tap-ins. There's been a few good goals in there. That overhead against Burnley, that goal against Arsenal. There's been a few decent goals.
The 2 against Everton when they were both worldies when we drew
last season. Like he does have that ability, but I think all round he's very frustrating because a lot of the times you don't know whether the ball's gonna stick with at his feet or not. And a lot of the diving around and the play acting and stuff, especially when you're losing games, it really sort of winds fans up and stuff like that. And I think he's a very temperamental player. If he's good, you'll get good out of him. If he's bad, you're going to see that on the football pitch. But ultimately, his whole time at Tottenham Hotspur, we've seen a lot more bad than good. And I would argue, how long is he going to keep this up for? Because I think he hasn't scored more than 14 Premier League goals in his career. So, it goes to show that maybe, he might not exceed that. But if he does, then maybe he earns himself a stay of execution. But I just thought it was interesting to bring up and be interested to see what
there he is in the lineup photo.
And Shavi's in.
The one thing I'll say about Richarlison, though, is that, and I'm going to give him his props on this, is that he's a right awful person to play against. If you're the opponent, he's not the type of player you want to play against because he just is combative, isn't he? He's just all the time combative and he's always in your face. Like I keep saying, to me, I get the aura when I watch him play, it's as if he wants to play the man before playing the ball. So, at the end of the day, fair play to him. I hope he scores tonight. I hope he scores 10 goals tonight from a starting position and that he furthers your stats, Dave.
Look, it's not like I'm back to guy. Don't get me wrong. I thoroughly enjoy when he scores a goal because it's entertaining. It's one of them. It's like I suppose it's like when Brennan Johnson scores. I don't rate Brennan Johnson, but when he scores, I think people chuckle and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's like I sort of do that when Richarlison scores. But look, the lineup is out. Let's go through it. We've got Guglielmo Vicario in goals. Jack, I know you said in predicted lineup, maybe the way Frank was glazing Kinski, that maybe he was going to get a start against his former club and stuff like that. But it does look like that.
I think it
You know,
shows
the
he doesn't rate
reports.
Kinski very much, or he doesn't, trust him. Because I
Well,
don't see any game that Kinski's going to get. That was my whole point. It was like, when's Kinski going to ever play again? Because he's definitely not going to play any games in December. And then against Dortmund, against these other teams, like, do you really trust him for those ones? I was like, this seems like the only game that you would play him in. And
yeah.
the fact that he hasn't, I think, says a lot. To be fair.
Well, I think it leads back to them reports that came out 2 international breaks ago, where they sort of said, they were worried about him, that maybe he was declining, or, sort of his ability wasn't progressing as much as they thought it was behind the scenes. And I think a lot of that probably comes down to his shot stop. And that was his biggest weakness when he was in the net for us. And we know, that he's going to rely a lot on that, especially from outside the box, with Thomas Frank. So maybe that leads to that. But we've got Pedro Porro back in at right back and Spence back in at left back. They are going to be your two fullbacks for at least a month of December anyway, because Destiny Udogie is out injured. And I'd argue a huge opportunity for Jed Spence. And it's a shame we didn't get into this conversation today, but maybe we'll do it tomorrow on the debate show, Jacko's, around Jed Spence. Because when I was thinking about it, on Udogie's injury, I was like, what, huge opportunity for the guy today. But why has no manager ever actually really said and looked at him and go, you're my number one? So we'll have that conversation tomorrow evening. And then, of course, a centre-back, you've got old Ron Bomlicious and Mickey van der Lionel Messi at centre-back as well. Then you move into the midfield. Gray retains his place after a fantastic performance at the weekend against Brentford. I think he came out with 94% pass accuracy, 6 defensive actions, 5 balls into the final third. He showed that he combined his defensive games along with his attacking game. And then you've got João Paulinho then stepping in for Bentancur, and Bentancur then drops to the bench. And then you've got Kudus back out at right wing. You've also got Wilson Odobert off the left, Shavi in the middle, Simmons back in there, and then Richarlison through the middle. Then on the bench, you've got Kinski, you've got Gunter, Danzo, Tel, Bergvall, Sarr, Bentancur, Davies, Muani, Scarlett, Olisas, and Williams Barnett. But I don't think you'll see the youngsters as they did play earlier on in the UEFA Youth League. So I think it would be left over to the likes of Danzo, Tel, Bergvall, players like that to come off the bench tonight. So guys in the chat, let me know your thoughts on the lineup. Some rotations, but you would argue the bulk of it is still there. I'm not happy that Mwani's dropped to the bench, but I'll live with it. Let's hope for Udobert can come in and build off the back of some of his impressive performances of late. Let's go through the panel. Let's see what Jose's and Martin's thoughts are. Let's get their score predictions, and then we'll bounce out of here, let you folks have your dinner, and get back here for the watch-along. Martin, thoughts on the lineup? I'd say you're delighted that Xavi's in there. I'd say you're probably going off the draw bar, are you?
Yeah, without my biasness, I'm glad if he's keeping the same, as we said earlier, the structure. It looks to be the same, but he's just swapped Odobert on the left and Paulinho, which I don't mind. I would have preferred Kolo Romani, but he did have a little bit of a knock. But I'm always one of them. If you're on the bench, then if you're on the bench, you're ready to go in the lineup. So, but maybe he's just doing it for a bit of freshness. But if he's setting them up the way they started Saturday with the same instructions and, keeping it simple, play football that we can play and that we look good at this season, or just on the one game, then we need to start early, a nice early goal. The crowd with Sonny, let's get us all lifted and let's go for a 3-0 home win.
For all intents and purposes, it does look like it's going to be a similar sort of game plan and tactics and all employed from the Brentford game. It certainly looks like that. And hopefully, it'll serve us well today. It'd be nice to be able to sit there at 50 minutes, whip out the bucket hat, the shades, and sort of chill out for the last sort of 40 minutes and just start saying ole, ole after every pass and get some of the better players off arrested for the weekend. Jose, we've got El Tel Cockerell in here. We've got 1,348 watching across all platforms. So give us your thoughts quickly on the lineup. Let us know what you think the score prediction is going to be and why people need to get over to the channel.
I'm happy with the non-tinkering, if you like, only the couple of changes being made. Regardless of who,
he just couldn't help himself. He still had to do it.
Yeah, but regardless of who the two were or weren't going to be, 2 is like minimal compared to some of the other changes that he's made this season. So 2's minimal, but a bit like we've been saying all show. And what we've been alluding to all show is come out, play the same front foot football you did against Brentford, whereby I can see my 2 fullbacks overlapping, and so therefore it means that you give the teams, the opposition, something to think about, where your two blokes are overlapping, which then means that your wide players in Kudos and Odebert can then come inside, because the overlap's already happening, can come inside and create more around the edge of the box type thing, and just attack them from all angles. Don't be predictable. And that's what one thing that we talked about earlier on this stream, is that we were not predictable against Brentford at all. And we could attack both inside and outside. And that's what I want to see. I want to see a continuation from Saturday to tonight. He hasn't changed the team. I just hope that the tactics are exactly the same as what they were at the weekend, and that we go on from this game to grow into our next game, and then the game after that, and the game after that. But for tonight, I was going to say that I wanted to see a 3-0 victory. But do you know what? It's not what I think it's going to be, it's what I would like to see. I would like to see a 4-0 victory. I'd like to go push it out one further. I'd like to see a...
Is it me?
Be important in this Champions League, and that we probably need goal difference may play a part in this. So I'm looking for a 4-0 victory tonight, is what I'd like to see.
All right.
I'd like to see us.
Faz Radford would be delighted.
I'd like us to perform.
Playing up to him.
I'd like us to come. I'd like us to come and improve from Saturday to today.
Yeah.
Hopefully no Kelleher performance from their goalkeeper, like Dave said, and it could be 4-0. Yeah, plug Eltel Cockerell.
Yeah, they haven't got Kinski, because Kinski come to us, so their goalkeeper that they've got now weren't their first choice last season, so hopefully he's dog poo. Eltel Cockerell, I don't really do loads and loads anymore on there, but I still do weekly prediction shows. I do a weekly show on a Sunday. I do a lot when I'm at the ground now. I take a lot of shorts when I'm at the ground, so I do a lot of takes from the ground. But if anyone wants to come over and subscribe, the link's there. You're more than welcome to do so. Thank you very much, Dave and Jack, for having me. Martin, pleasure being on with you, mate.
And you too, Jose.
Thanks,
and thank you very much, everyone in the chat. You've been very interactive. I've been reading all your comments, interesting ones.
Well, there we have it. So make sure you get over and check out Eltel Cockerell. A massive thank you to Martin and to Jose for giving up their time today. They both got families to run and wives to keep happy, but they gave up 2 hours of the day to be here. So I really do appreciate the generosity of your time, gentlemen. I want to say a massive thank you to all you guys at home as well for giving up your time and tuning in. We are going to take a half-an-hour break now. We will be back for the watch-along. So make sure you go and get your dinner, your beers, and make sure you're sitting in your seat comfy for a watch of Sonny's farewell tour as well here today. But look, we're back at home, under the lights, all white, lily white. Let's fucking go. Expect a good attacking performance tonight. It's one of them. Hopefully we can sit back. Let's put our feet up. Easy 3 points. And then a massive thank you to people who have gone the extra mile. I know it's a tough time of the year for everybody, expensive time of the year, so I appreciate you guys that have gone the extra mile and keep supporting us. We've got Sugar Ray, WBC holder in here. We've also got Wembley 1 in the house, Eltel Cockerell as well, Eddie as well in the gaff, and then we also had Faz Radfar. Appreciate it, guys. We'll see you back here for the big game in half an hour's time. As always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.